Hi, welcome to Animation Recap Center. Today we are going to explain a post-apocalyptic science fiction disaster movie called Reign of Fire. The movie is so amazing that you will definitely be hypnotized by it. So, without any further ado, let's start with the recap. Sit back, grab your snacks, and enjoy. The film begins with a little boy named Quinn, who is shown at an underground construction site in London, where his mother works as a project engineer. All the staff here knew Quinn as a good boy and loved him. He wishes to meet his mother, who is currently working in an underground construction program. He pays a visit and talks to her mother for a while, but she has to get back to some digging, so she tells Quinn to leave and get home safe. On his way out, he hears a man cussing at his mother only because she was making him go inside a tunnel who's afraid to go. Quinn goes to that man and tells him that it's highly unethical and disrespectful to say bad stuff to a person just because they gave you a task you cannot do. The man's ego is hurt, so he dares Quinn to go inside the tunnel instead of him. This underground cave was completely dark. Quinn takes the torch and fearlessly crawls inside the cave. He thinks he's touching the muddy walls, but in reality he's touching the scales on a dragon's back. As he keeps stroking his hand on the dragon's back thinking it's just a weird textured wall, the dragon spits a small ball of fire near his feet. When Quinn looks up, he becomes scared to see the face of a dragon, which looked terrifying. The dragon spits its saliva on Quinn's face, which causes him irritation. He got very scared. He immediately comes out and informs everyone of the dragon that's been sleeping inside the tunnel. His mother believes him after seeing his condition, but the men didn't believe him. A group of workers want to enter the tunnel to see if there is a dragon in there or not. Then some workers penetrate the cave and a huge dragon emerges from hibernation. The men somehow offend the dragon to spit a large amount of fire, which wipes out their existence. The fire starts coming out of the tunnel. Slowly everything starts catching fire, which makes Quinn and his mother run for their lives. Quinn and his mother take the lift to get back on the ground, but unfortunately, the dragon comes out of the tunnel and attacks the mother-son duo. The lift hits the ground, but with Quinn alive and his mother dead. The boy was the only survivor. It is then shown that the dragon's first appearance of the construction place was witnessed in 2010. Since then, the dragons had taken over the entire world and had reduced the population to a dangerous extent. The majority of people that were weak or unskilled happened to die within the coming years, whereas the strong ones survived and fought the dragons for a living. This brings things to the current time where fewer people are left on Earth. For 20 years humans have been fighting dragons for their survival. Quinn, who is a grown man now, along with his best friend Creedy, leads a community of survivors at Bamberg Castle, Northumberland, where he plans to outlast dragons until they go back into hibernation. He has made an underground slum where he gives shelter to needy people and provides them protection from the dragons. Quinn has befriended fewer guys to help him lead the slum. The people are only allowed to go out on the ground when they have to work in the fields or have to harvest food. Quinn and his people have cropped outside from where they fulfill their basic food needs. But food is slowly becoming scarce and growing crops is becoming increasingly difficult. One day a guy named Eddie from Quinn's domain rebels and demands to leave. He blames Quinn and his poor food arrangements for the death of his wife and daughter. He doesn't want the rest of his family to die of starvation, so he wants to get out. Quinn doesn't grant him permission, saying it's more dangerous to survive alone than to stay protected under his small community. Besides, he promises to provide more food once the crops are fully ready to be harvested. Till then, he requests Eddie to compromise. Eddie acts cool in front of him. But at night, Eddie secretly steals Quinn's Jeep keys. And at dawn, he sneaks out of the underground slum with his family and some people who are on his side. It was not very clear due to the fog around, and the guard did not notice their exit. They head to the crop field directly to get some food. Meanwhile, the guard in the fort used a falcon to sense the dragon's presence. Unfortunately, the security guard noticed something suspicious and speculates a dragon's arrival in the field. So they ring the alarms in the field and the slum both. Quinn and his associates wakes up to the alarm and become alerted, but they realize Eddie and his family was missing. As much as Quinn is angry and mad at Eddie, he's also a leader who has to look after his people. Meanwhile, in the crop field, the dragon attacks Eddie's men and sets the place on fire. Unfortunately, some people burn to death. Eddie and his people realize they made a great mistake by ignoring Quinn's advice. They pray to the Lord knowing they cannot be saved. Inside the castle, Quinn decides to go out to save Eddie and his family because he knows they cannot survive alone. Quinn is intelligent enough to trace them through his Jeep. He reached the field and began to search for them in all directions, although it was dangerous. Quinn still takes the risk and succeeds in tricking the dragon as the fire creates thick smoke that prevents the dragon from seeing anyone. Quinn arrives there with a fireproof jacket. He successfully gets everyone inside the Jeep and sets off to take everyone to his castle in his special Jeep. Everything goes according to the plan, but the dragon shows up at the last minute and throws fire, due to which Eddie's youngest son, who is about to hop inside the Jeep, gets killed. Everyone gets back and mourns the lost soul. The Quinn is super mad at Eddie for taking such a poor decision that got his son killed in the fields. The scene then shifts to the next day. The guard of the fort saw some cars in the distance and quickly sounded the alarm, sensing danger. Everyone in the fort got ready with their weapons. They see a group of heavily armed Americans arrive in an armored convoy with a chieftain tank. The group commander, Van Zandt, comes out of his panzer looking like a wild beast. The people of the fort quickly realized that it was impossible to win a war with them. Van Zandt asks the security to see their chief instead. Creedy then sent Quinn as leader of that castle. Van Zandt and Quinn faced each other. Van Zandt states that he and his group are warriors that fight dragons for a living. They want to make the world dragon-free like it once was. Unfortunately, in all this time they've lost a lot of food and weapons. He proposes to Quinn that he takes him and his group as his refugees and provides them with food and shelter for some time. But Quinn refuses their offer considering the security of the fort. The team commander then said that capturing your fort is not a very difficult task for us. He further shows a dragon's teeth that he's wearing as a necklace to solidify his image of a warrior. He tells it defeated a dragon and pulled out one of his teeth himself. Quinn takes the tooth in his hand and believes the guy isn't lying about his work. So, he joins hands with him and takes an in. But Creedy scolds him for allowing strangers into the castle. Later, some other fighters of that group reach there by an Augusta Westland AW-109 utility helicopter. Everyone in the fort gets worried seeing so many weapons as they can capture the fort anytime. From the new group, Quinn gets slightly attracted to a girl named Alex. She's a pilot who flies helicopters and helps in the dragon slaying operations. Quinn curiously asks how they kill such giant and vicious dragons. Van Zandt and Alex say that they fly the helicopters close enough to the dragon's heads so that the warriors can jump on the dragon's head and slay them. During the night, Van Zandt and his team fix their equipment inside the fort. In the next scene, the security guards suspect another dragon's attack by using a telescope. They immediately ring the alarms in the underground slum, which now alerts Van Zandt and his fugitives. Quinn and his men and Van Zandt's men join hands and hit the road to slay the dragons together. Van Zandt sends 3 of his men on bikes before them. They are sent to plant a radar-like machine in the fields where the dragons are about to show up. The machine is divided into 3 poles and requires its placement in the ground in the shape of a triangle or else it won't work. The first 2 bikers successfully plant their poles on the right spots, but the third rider tips over his bike and dies. One tries to communicate to the third rider to ask for his status through the walkie-talkie, but he doesn't get a response. Luckily, Quinn arrives there and talks to Van Zandt, who instructs Quinn about the right placement of the third radar pole. Soon, Van Zandt suspects the main dragon heading toward the mountain behind which Quinn was working on the radar. It is then shown that Alex is flying the chopper where she yells at a guy to become the bait for the dragon. She makes the guy jump in from the dragon and gives him the bait. The man does as he's told and diverts the dragon's attention. Soon, he opens his parachute and flies out of the dragon's sight. Now 2 other men of Van Zandt jumps out of the chopper and trap the dragon in their net. The dragon appears to be stronger and breaks their nets easily. This was something Van Zandt's people had never faced before. They try to tackle the situation, but the dragon eats one of the 2 men and the second one doesn't get the chance to open his parachute, so he dies. Subsequently, one informs Quinn of the situation and tells him to leave the castle since the dragon is heading in his direction. Quinn gets back on his horse, but the dragon chases after him. Van Zandt takes over the situation and fires a bazooka toward the dragon. The dragon gets severely injured and slowly dies. Scene shift at night. When Quinn and his people are happily dancing and singing, Van Zandt is upset because he lost 3 of his warriors due to this dragon who are highly skilled and trustworthy. Most importantly, his men are dwindling very fast. After a while, the commander explains to Quinn how fire comes out of the dragon's mouth. But Quinn already knew that 2 glands in the mouth secrete separate chemicals. There, Van Zandt tells his real plan, which is to slay the only male-dominant dragon to stop the dragon's population from further growing. They have killed about 200 dragons so far, but all of them were females, and they think the only male dragon is in this city of London. He asks Quinn to join hands and give him his people too. Quinn bluntly denies it and says that he can't endanger the lives of his people. Since Van Zandt is desperate and truly wants to free the people from the ruthless dragons, he goes to Quinn's people himself and gives an emotional speech to get them on his team. During his speech, his eyes become teary, which indicates that he was a righteous person. However, when Quinn finds out about Van Zandt's direct encounter with his people, he takes it the wrong way and assumes Van Zandt is trying to brainwash his people. He picks up a physical fight with Van Zandt, but since Van Zandt is super jacked up, he overpowers Quinn and gives him some solid fists that he had never tasted in his life before. Alex, despite being Van Zandt's associate, feels bad for Quinn and provides him with medical aid. After the fight, Van Zan and his men begin their journey to the city of London. Their only goal is to kill the male dragon. But as they approach the city of London, the dragon suddenly attacked them. The attack was so severe that all but Alex and Van Zan died. After that, the male dominant dragon arrives to the castle and sets fire to Quinn's entire domain. The dragon doesn't stop spitting fire until everything turns into ashes. During its final attack, Creedy is killed, who was the best friend of Quinn. Quinn and his allies hide in a safe bunker with all the children of the castle. But after the dragon left, they couldn't get out because the bunker door was stuck. Quinn is helpless, but Van Zan and Alex then come to the castle to find them and rescue them. They take everyone to a safe place. This horrific incident changes Juan and Quinn's opinions about one another. Van Zan apologizes for getting his people in danger because of his arrival, and Quinn is thankful to him for saving his people. Now, Quinn also vouches for Van Zan's plan and decides to team up with him. However, Quinn hands his fewer people left to his domain's most trustable and responsible young man named Gerard. He advises Jared to look after the people and always protect them no matter what happens. Now, Quinn leaves with Van Zan and Alex in their helicopter. They reach the central point of London where hundreds of small dragons are circling over the historical buildings, and they are eating their own. This means that currently dragons are more dangerous and aggressive than ever before. Alex was so scared that he couldn't even speak properly. Unfortunately, the tree has no plan to defeat the main dragon, so they get into an argument. Now, Quinn confesses that he knows all the underground shortcuts to reach the middle of London without them getting noticed or attacked by any dragon. The trio goes underground and reaches a point that's the main tower. Van Zan then informs them about the dragon's only weak point. Dragon only exposes his chest before he breathes fire. Van Zan shows the last 2 magnesium tip C4 arrows he has, and takes one for himself and gives the other to Quinn. They send Alex out. As the bait, she lures the dragon toward the tower, where Van Zan uses a crossbow kind of weapon for throwing the arrow inside the dragon's mouth. Unfortunately, he misses a shot that doesn't kill the dragon, that only makes it angrier. But meanwhile, unconscious Quinn loses his only arrow. He realizes that Van Zan is going to be in terrible danger because of him. The dragon opens an attack at Van Zan, but he dodges it. Van Zan takes out his axe as his last move and jumps off a dead end, hoping to chop off the dragon's head, but instead gets eaten by the dragon. Till the end, Van Zan died fighting like a warrior. Meanwhile, Quinn and Alex start to run away because they have nothing left to fight the dragon. The dragon sees him and starts chasing after him. But just then Quinn finds her lost arrow. His hands begin to tremble in fear of death. Luckily, Quinn gets his hands on the weapon and shoots the bomb, aiming toward the dragon's mouth. Doesn't miss and goes straight inside the dragon. The magnesium on the tip of the arrow causes a chemical explosion inside the dragon's mouth, and thus killing it mercilessly. Alex then tells Quinn that Van Zan was a real warrior and a good person. The scene is then directly cut to the part where Quinn and Alex are seen building a new community together in a place that has become completely dragon-free.